I lived in a 4-story brick apartment building in Baltimore where everyone kept to themselves, but everyone also knew when something was off. Noise traveled, smells traveled, and bad news traveled fastest. Apartment 14B had belonged to a man named Coulter for as long as anybody could remember. He was maybe 50, maybe 70. Thin, quiet, smoked on the fire escape, never rude, but never friendly. Then one week nobody saw him. His mail piled up. A smell started. At first people complained to management. Then they started taping dryer sheets over their vents. By day 4, the whole 3rd floor smelled like spoiled meat left in a radiator. The super said Coulter must have gone away and left food out. On day 5, liquid started leaking from under his door. Dark brown, thick. That got everyone's attention. The super and a maintenance guy went up with a master key. I stood in the hallway with 2 other tenants because morbid curiosity is stronger than decency. The moment the door cracked open, the maintenance guy stumbled back gagging. I've smelled roadkill in summer. This was worse. This was sweet and swollen and chemical all at once, like rot with heat behind it. The super covered his face and went inside. Then he started yelling for someone to call 911. I only saw a piece of it before they pushed us back. A barefoot, gray, bloated, toenails dark. Police and EMTs came. They were in there for a long time. Long enough for the hallway to fill with that smell until it coated the back of my throat. Word spread that Coulter had died in the bathtub. Heart attack, maybe. He'd been there nearly a week. That was horrifying enough. Then the detective started knocking on doors. When he got to mine, he asked if I had heard any movement from Coulter's apartment after the smell began. I said yes, because I had. At night there had been dragging noises, slow thumps. Once, what sounded like furniture scraping. I assumed it was pipes expanding or another tenant nearby. The detective wrote everything down without reacting. A day later, the building group chat went insane because somebody posted that there had been 2 bodies in 14B. The second one wasn't dead. It was Coulter's adult son. Nobody knew he even had a son. Apparently the son had come by sometime after Coulter died, and for reasons nobody ever explained, never left. Maybe overdose, maybe psychotic break, maybe fear. What police found was this. The son had stayed in the apartment with the corpse for days. No electricity, no food left except condiments and stale crackers. No calls made. By the time they entered, he was hiding in a kitchen cabinet under the sink, naked except for socks, skin slick with sweat and decomposition fluids from lying near the body. He had been eating. That rumor came first, and I prayed it was just building gossip. Then I saw the evidence myself. A week later, after the apartment had been cleared, the super accidentally left the door open while contractors worked inside. Curiosity beat fear again, and I looked in. The bathtub was gone. So were most of the cabinets. But on the kitchen floor, still visible beneath a smear of disinfectant, was a dark handprint with streaks leading toward the sink cabinet. And on the counter was a coroner's photo. Someone had apparently dropped and forgotten to collect. I shouldn't have picked it up. I'll know that. It showed Coulter in the tub, body swollen and split in places from bloating, skin slipping from one shoulder in pale sheets. The abdomen was discolored green-black. The lips had retracted from the teeth, but the worst part wasn't the body. It was the missing tissue. Small, uneven bites taken from the softened flesh of the forearm and upper chest. Human bites. I dropped the photo and nearly threw up in the hallway. That same night, I heard scratching from the vent over my stove. Not rats. Too rhythmic. Scratch, scratch, pause, then a soft sound, like someone licking their lips. I moved out within the month. Years later, I still think about that sun under the sink cabinet, breathing that rot, listening to us complain in the hallway while he hid 10 feet away. And I still can't use bathroom fans that vent into shared ducts, because sometimes, late at night, when an exhaust fan kicks on in a hotel or apartment, I catch a whiff of hot metal and something sweet underneath it, and for 1 second I'm back in that hallway outside 14B staring at a door with something leaking from under it, knowing there's still somebody alive on the other side. Some doors shouldn't be opened, and some smells mean it's already too late. Subscribe before you hear it in your walls. Story 2. The Roadside Chapel. My friend Nate and I used to drive back roads at night because we were idiots and because small towns always look wrong after midnight. Empty gas stations, church signs and headlights, houses sitting too far back from the road. One October, we were cutting through West Virginia after a concert, taking whatever route the GPS thought would save time. Around 1 in the morning, we lost signal and ended up on a road so narrow the trees touched overhead. That's when we saw the chapel. It sat maybe 30 feet off the road with no parking lot, no neighboring houses, just a white building with peeling paint and a lit cross over the door. There were candles glowing in every window. Nate joked that we should stop and ask for directions. I said no. Then we saw the blood on the steps. Not a lot. A trail. Fresh enough to still shine under the porch light. That changed the joke into something else. We pulled over. I wish we hadn't. The front door was unlocked. Inside was a single room with 12 pews, an altar, and candles burning so low the wax had run onto the floor. The place smelled like incense and raw meat. There was nobody there at first glance. Then we heard something from behind the altar, a wet dragging sound. Nate went right. I went left, and when we looked behind it, there was a man on the floor in a suit, missing most of his left hand. Not missing like an accident, missing like it had been chopped into sections. The wrist was a ragged stump wrapped in a strip of torn shirt, already soaked through. 3 fingers were lying on a folded cloth beside him, like they'd been placed there. He was still alive. His lips moved, but there wasn't enough saliva left in his mouth for words. He kept looking toward a door behind the altar. Nate told me to call 911. I did. No signal. Then the door opened. An old woman came out carrying a basin. She was tiny, gray hair pinned up, blood all over the sleeves of her dress. I remember how calm she looked. She set the basin down, saw us, and smiled like we were early guests. Nate started yelling, asking what she'd done, where the phone was, if there was anyone else there. She just kept smiling. Then she said very softly, "He asked to be made clean." The man on the floor made a sound through his teeth. Not agreement. Fear. Nate moved toward her, and that's when I saw what was in the basin. More fingers, an ear, strips of skin curled like apple peels. Human. I shouted at him to stop. He didn't. The old woman reached into her apron and pulled out pruning shears. Nate laughed for half a second because it looked ridiculous. Then she opened his forearm to the bone in one squeeze. He screamed and fell back, clutching the wound while blood pumped between his fingers. She moved faster than either of us expected, got on top of him like she weighed nothing, and drove the shears into his cheek, not closed. Point first, they punched in below the eye with a sound I still hear when I'm trying to sleep. I grabbed a brass candle holder and hit her. Once, twice. Her head snapped sideways, but she didn't drop the shears. Nate was shrieking, kicking, blood all over the aisle. The man on the floor started crawling away, leaving a wide red trail from his ruined wrist. I hit her again, and finally she slid off Nate. He staggered up with half his face pouring blood, one eye already swelling shut. We ran. We didn't help the other man. I think about that more than anything. We got back to the road and drove until we found signal. State police met us 20 minutes later and followed us back. There was no chapel. I know how that sounds, but there wasn't. Same road, same trees, no building, no cross, no candles, nothing. They treated Nate at a hospital 2 counties over. He lost the eye. The police wrote it up as an assault by an unknown person near an abandoned structure, probably because that sounded less insane. Months later, Nate mailed me a newspaper clipping from 1987. Tiny article, buried on page 6. A revival chapel had burned down on that same road after the pastor was found dismembered inside. Authorities suspected an elderly parishioner with dementia who was never located. The article ended with one sentence I wish I'd never read. Several body parts were recovered from a wash basin near the altar. Some places don't disappear. They just wait for the next person to stop. Subscribe if you would have kept driving.